The Legacy of the Twin Bond. Chapter 10. Mist lingered like a child reluctant to part from its mother as the company moved away from First Light Pass, threading into the whispering pine valley where dawn seldom reached the forest floor. Hoofbeats and soft bootfalls merged with the hush of damp needles underfoot. The only louder sound was the steady breathing of 29 wolves and riders adjusting to the rhythms of a long road. Kalen led at point, spear balanced across saddle, eyes sweeping both tree line and sky, while Aiden rode behind him on a small slate-gray mare. The boy's shoulders were straight, but he kept glancing back to be sure fortress walls still showed through morning haze as if a frayed memory might dissolve once the stones were out of sight. Lyana followed close behind on whisper. She wore her new wolf-etched bracelet at the wrist of her sword arm, and its silver lines caught every stray shaft of sun that pierced the canopy. Lucian's gray storm runner paced just off her right stirrup. She sensed him more than she saw him, the soft clink of his rune dagger against saddle ring, the steady cadence of his breath when the slope steepened, the faint herbal scent that clung to his cloak from packing the medic trunk. Each subtle detail drew her awareness like moths to lantern glass. Lucian felt her attention as warmth rising in his chest. Without turning, he shifted weight in the saddle, handed her a water skin, and murmured, "Drink before the climb, my lady of silent endurance." She teased him under her breath for the formality, but her smile curved fresh resolve across tired lips. The waterskin's neck brushed her mouth exactly where his thumb had rested. The jolt was small yet sweet, a secret passed between pulse and breath. Behind them, Liora's chestnut dawnstep lifted neat hooves over a tangle of moss-draped roots while Lyrian's black gelding kept pace on the other side of the path. They moved in a mirrored rhythm that pleased the eye precisely because it wasn't intentionally choreographed. At one bend, the trail narrowed to a ribbon carved between stone outcrops. Lyrian slowed to let Dawn step through first. Liora dipped her head in quiet thanks, and he touched 2 fingers to his heart rather than speak, unwilling to disturb the hush that had fallen since daybreak. Just before midday, the forest gave way to low ridges tufted with moon-silver grasses. Small white petals carpeted hollows, where pockets of sun finally broke the haze. Thalos dismounted to inspect one cluster, fingers brushing the blossoms until they sighed open wider, releasing faint perfume. "Moonflowers," he said, voice low with reverence. The shaman joined him, touching a palm to the soil. "The clearing must be close," she murmured. She pointed to gentle rises leading west. "We camp there tonight." Kalen signaled a brief halt so horses could drink from a brook. Darius and Isara walked the banks, scanning fresh tracks. They found only deer and the delicate prints of dusk hares, yet Darius noted twig breaks farther uphill, too clean to be wind. He met Isara's eyes. Both understood that Varric's scouts watched from somewhere just beyond sightline, measuring strength, waiting. Lyana, crouched beside the stream, felt Lucian's presence at her back. Water lapped cold over her fingers. He knelt a pace behind her and dipped one palm near hers. The current carried a single moonflower petal between their hands. Lucian caught it and held it toward her, watching sunlight catch fine veins in its surface. "It drifted to you," he said. She took it gently, resting the petal in the hollow of her bracelet. "Then perhaps it knows where it belongs." Their eyes met, and around that glance the world compressed into heartbeat, soft wind, and the hush of unseen petals falling. Liora noticed the exchange from where she refilled canteens. Her cheeks warmed with secondhand tenderness. She turned to find Lyrian watching her quiet smile, and though he said nothing, he lifted his canteen in playful toast. Travel resumed through the afternoon. Clouds shredded, revealing a sky so clear it felt carved from crystal. Sun dipped behind far ridges just as they crested a gradual rise and saw the Moonflower Clearing spread beneath them, a meadow ringed by sentinel pines, its floor already luminous with the first blooms unfolding as day retreated. Thousands of pearly petals reflected violet dusk, making the earth appear sown with stars fallen in secret. The sight drew soft exclamations. Aiden leaned forward in his saddle, eyes wide. "The ground is dreaming," he whispered. Kalen ruffled the boy's curls. "Dreaming of stories we've not yet told." Tents went up close to the clearing's eastern edge so no one trampled petals. Cookfires remained small out of respect for the fragile blooms. Fragrant steam rose from stewed herbs, mingling with floral perfume until the air tasted like memory woven with hope. Thalos placed smooth stones around the perimeter, runes etched by moonlit spark. The shaman scattered powdered sage along the circle, whispering old blessings for truth and invitation. When camp settled, Liora spread blankets beneath a young pine whose needles sang faintly in evening breeze. Lyrian joined her, offering a strip of dried fruit. In comfortable silence, they watched Kalen teach Aiden a whistle call that signaled safe passage. Darius polished spearheads nearby. Isara stitched a loose strap on Ella's jerkin, while both women compared recipes for root broth. Peace, fragile and sudden, hovered beneath pine boughs. Liana finished securing mounts, then walked across meadow until moonflowers brushed her boots. She paused, breathing fragrance deep, every petal reflecting silver moon just risen. Lucian approached carrying 2 cups of warm honey mint. He handed one over, letting fingers linger at the rim. She thanked him, voice hushed by beauty around them. "Come," he said. "I found a place where the flowers grow taller than knee-height." She followed under arching branches, lantern left behind to respect darkness. Fragrance grew richer. They reached a small nook where vines draped between 2 leaning pines, forming an intimate bower. Moonlight filtered through gapas, speckling ground with silver coins. Lucian set his cup aside and offered a hand to steady her over roots. They sat against soft moss. For a span, neither spoke. Night insects thrummed. Somewhere owls called. Liana broke silence first. "I used to imagine moonflowers as lanterns for lost spirits. At night in the orphanage, I'd picture petals guiding them home." Lucian listened, chin resting on hand. "And now their lanterns guide you." "Maybe us," she corrected gently. She sipped mint honey, warmth sliding into chest. "The path ahead feels endless." He searched her eyes. "Not endless, just unknown." He set his cup aside and, with visible deliberation, reached to touch her bracelet. Thumb traced one etched wolf, as if confirming its reality. Liana trembled, not from cold. She placed her free hand over his. "I fear what the echo demands," she whispered. "Echo reflects," he reminded her softly. "If we show it love, maybe love is what it will echo back." Moonlight painted pale glow on his cheekbones. She studied freckles across his nose, the line of his jaw. Words rose unbidden. "When you stand near, fear feels like distant thunder. I still hear it. But it isn't over my head." His laugh, quiet with wonder, warmed the space. "When you laugh," he said, "I remember why I gave up the memory of it. Because I want new ones, not just one frozen night." He lifted her hand, pressed it to his heart. "Here?" She felt steady rhythm, strong, but quickened. Her heartbeat matched, until their pulses blurred into one rhythm humming through joint palms. Leaves rustled overhead, shifting moonlight across their faces. Lucian's gaze dropped to her lips. He hesitated, searching her eyes for permission. She answered by leaning closer until breath mingled in lavender mint hush. Their first kiss arrived like dawn cresting horizon, slow, certain, gilding everything it touched. The world did not spin. Instead, it steadied. When they parted, tears shimmered in Liana's lashes. Not sorrow, but a sudden expansion of heart too big for chest. Lucian kissed dampness away with feather-light reverence. They rested foreheads together, silent gratitude pulsing between. Across the clearing, Liora and Lyrian reclined beneath the rune-whispering pine. She traced shapes on his palm as she spoke of moonflower myths. lovers transformed into blossoms so they could bloom each night side by side. He listened, thumb brushing her knuckles. A falling star streaked overhead. Reflex made him wish, but words caught in throat. She noticed, smiled softly. "What was your wish?" she asked. "That you never doubt the strength inside you," he answered. She laced fingers through his. "Then I wish you believe the same of yourself." He exhaled, shoulders loosening. "I fear I'll fail when trial comes." "And I fear to lose you," she confessed. "But fear named is fear tamed." She guided his hand to her heartbeat. "Yours keeps time with mine. If you falter, listen." Tears threatened him too, but he blinked them into starlight and kissed her temple. Their closeness felt less like heat and more like quiet shelter. Kaelin watched from camp edge, satisfaction easing lines between brows. Aiden sat beside him, drawing runes in dirt with a twig. He looked up. "They glow," he whispered. "Love often does," Kaelin replied. Darius and Isara stood together by a low flame. Darius murmured, "This journey may break them or forge them unbreakable." Isara laid her head briefly against his shoulder. "Love is a stronger anvil than fear," she answered. Thalos and the shaman walked perimeter, runes on stones flickering. They paused at one stone near Moonflower Ring. New glyphs etched themselves in glimmering lines. Thalos bent, reading aloud in breathy reverence. "Love is the bond the prophecy fears most." He straightened, eyes shining. Perhaps prophecy is afraid because love writes its own story. The shaman smiled. "Then let us protect the ink." In deepest night, after coals cooled and the meadow silenced, the twins dreamed. Liana's dream unfurled first. Lucian wreathed in vibrant flame that did not burn, arms open, guarding a path lined with moonflowers. She walked that path, feeling heat without harm. Lucian's smile steadied the world. Lucian's dream followed. Liana barefoot through shadow corridors. Every darkness bowed aside, retreating under her gentle glow. He followed, light growing with each step until corridors burst into starfield. Liora dreamed of wind rising, storm clouds rolling like wolves, yet Lyrian stood firm between gust and her. His cloak snapped, but he did not waver. Lightning struck behind, but left him untouched. Lyrian dreamed of a candle in Leora's hands, flame steady despite gale. He watched echoes swirl, looking for a way in, but they melted before her light. Her song, wordless but sure, held them at bay. Morning's first gray filtered over clearing, and each twin woke breathing calm. Moonflowers still glowed faintly, releasing last perfume sigh before folding. Aiden stood at Kaelin's side, eyes wide. "They dreamed together," he said as though tasting wonder. Kaelin nodded. "Let's bring them water." Liana stirred when Kaelin approached, and she accepted waterskin with grateful smile. Lucian rolled up blanket, catching petal caught in her hair. Instead of brushing it free, he tucked it behind her ear. She blushed but did not look away. By cooking fire, Liora sipped broth from Isara, explaining quietly how her dream left her certain they could face storms. Lyrian listened, pressing moon-pale petal into his journal before closing it. Thalos addressed the company as they packed. "Love written in starlight blooms beyond memory. We step forward together, heart within heart." No one argued. Lucian retrieved a small polished ash carving from saddlebag, shaped like crescent moon. He offered it to Liana. A reminder of last night when fear grew small. She turned it in her palm, eyes shining. "I'll guard it. And you." She kissed his knuckles before slipping charm onto bracelet chain. Lyrian approached Liora with a delicate chain bearing translucent stone that caught dawn halo. "You already hold my heart, but carry this in case fear tries to tell you otherwise." She clasped chain around throat, pressing stone to lips. "It will never silence truth." She hugged him, slow and steady. Kalen called ready. Horses stamped eager. Moonflower Clearing receded behind as the company wound deeper into valleys. Varric's shadow lingered somewhere west, but in every saddle and heartbeat rode memory of moonlit kisses and promises carried in silver chains. The sky ahead brightened with promise, yet tinged with steel of looming fate. Romance had kindled a fiercer fire than any prophecy's threat, and even Echo's distant hum felt softer, as if prudent enough to let new love speak first. Pale gold light climbed the ridges as the company traveled beyond the Moonflower Clearing, leaving the gleaming petals behind like a promise rather than a memory. By mid-morning, rolling hills took on a rougher character, dotted with granite tors clad in lichen and bristling ferns. Pines thinned here, replaced by wind-crooked birches whose bark shone white against brooding clouds that gathered on the western horizon. The air tasted faintly metallic, hinting that a brief storm might cross their path later in the day. Kalen rode at the head beside Darius, exchanging plans in quiet voices about midday rest. Their path followed an abandoned merchant road that wound between granite outcrops and thickets of gorse. Several times Kalen guided the company off the deteriorating stones to avoid collapsed sections. At one such detour, Lucian dismounted to clear fallen branches from the narrower trail so that supply mules could pass without risk to their hooves. Liana joined him, lifting branches far thicker than her slim frame might suggest. He straightened, wiped sap from his palms, and teased, "Strength of the twin bond in tree-feeling fingers." She arched an eyebrow. "Bond powers or a lifetime of sparring with you and Thalia's drill sergeants?" "Both," he conceded. He offered his canteen. Their eyes held briefly. The warmth of last night's kiss stole through both hearts. While riders resumed, Aiden studied surrounding tors with curiosity. The boy's eyes flickered amber whenever he looked at particular stone pillars. He pointed one out to Kalen, drawing a spiral on his palm with a gloved finger. Kalen made mental note of the landmark but urged Aiden to conserve energy. The lad nodded and fell back alongside Ella, who carried a pouch of nutcakes to share. Just before noon, they reached a broad saddle between ridges. The road vanished under collapsed scree, but a circle of ancient standing stones rose on a low rise nearby, half lost beneath creeping moss. The shaman dismounted first, eyes wide. "These are the Sentinels of Old Dawn," she whispered. "Clerics have not recorded their glow in 200 years." Thalos touched one leaning column. Runic traces flared silver under his fingertips, though no tool had carved them in living memory. He beckoned the twins. "Your presence opens sleeping eyes." Liana and Lucian approached together, stepping across weathered ground where nothing larger than moss dared grow. As Liana's boot crossed an invisible threshold, every stone breathed faint light. Whispering vibrations brushed her ribs. Lucian felt the same. His pendant heated, cracks glowing brighter than morning sun. Liora and Lyrian entered the circle from another side. Liora inhaled sharply, sensing the energy of 1,000 distant heartbeats thrum like muted drums. Lyrian's rune dagger vibrated at his belt. Kalen ordered guards to form a perimeter at respectful distance. Darius and Isara positioned archers on the ridge to watch for unexpected guests. Within the circle, Thalos formed a triangle with the twins at cardinal points, and motioned Kalen, Darius, and the shaman to remain still. He spoke softly. "Listen with feeling. The stones remember." At first only breathing and a faint rustle of grasses reached their ears, but gradually an unvoiced hum emerged, rolling up from the earth and vibrating through bone. Lucian's heartbeat aligned. Liana felt her pulse slow, matching the hum. Liora closed eyes, sliding fingertips across lichen. Lyrian's vision clouded with flickers of images. A roaring sea, 2 wolves chasing across waves of moonlight, then the wolves standing nose to nose in this very circle, tails entwined. Liora whispered what she sensed. Love used to meet here when worlds still sang awake, 2 souls binding stone to sky. Thalos nodded. The Sentinels stir again to witness. He traced the glowing rune lines with his staff tip. Light bled outward, weaving between stones until a pattern emerged in the grass, Twin spirals interlocked at their centers before opening into simple hearts. Lucian swallowed, voice husky. Is it a blessing? The shaman answered, or a challenge to remember love in face of ruin. Aiden slipped past Kalen's sleeve, stepping to the circle's edge but not across. He pointed, eyes gone wide. The stones hum a lullaby. Kalen pulled the boy back gently. Let music reach the ones who called it. As quickly as light flared, it dimmed. The stones slumbered again, yet each twin's pendant now glowed steadier and warmer. Thalos touched the rune lines etched in Lyana's bracelet. They pulsed, soft violet. He nodded, satisfied. They took noon meal beyond the circle beneath a lone birch that offered scant shade but clear vantage. Ella distributed nutcakes and cheese. Isara poured nettle tea brewed with honey. The conversation turned quiet, every soul instinctively protective of the delicate reverence the stones had invoked. Lucian sat close to Lyana, backs against birch trunk. Without a word, she peeled the rind from cheese and offered him half. Their fingers brushed. He fed her a piece in return. The exchange felt new, though simple. Eyes lingered longer. Smiles held fuller. On the other side of camp, Liora and Lyrian shared a small bread loaf. She teased him about over-sharpening his dagger. He retorted, he could carve her rune knot into any tree. She dared him. He selected a fallen limb and with quick strokes etched a miniature of her pendant's design. She rested head on his shoulder to better watch, feeling his laughter vibrate gently through muscle. Kalen passed and saw their closeness. When he returned to Thalos, he said quietly, their hearts stand ahead of their feet. Thalos chuckled. Heart leads when path fades. Darius approached with Isara to report tracks near Western Ridge. 2 individuals wearing soft-soled shoes, perhaps scouts. Kalen quietly repositioned watch teams. No threat surfaced, but rainy wind gusts carried whispers of intent none could place. By late afternoon, clouds gathered thick and dark, delivering the promised storm. The company pressed on until rain fell in earnest. They located shallow cave under a sandstone shelf, wide enough for half the party while others pitched oiled canvas between leaning boulders. Within the cave, Lyana wrung water from braid while Lucian coaxed sparks into damp tinder. When flame caught, he gestured her nearer. They shared warmth, steam rising from damp cloaks. Liora arrived with Lyrian and Aiden carrying a bundle of damp branches. Lucian moved aside to make room. Soon the little cave sang with crackle and scent of cedar. As rain hammered the rocks, gentle conversations bloomed. Kalen told Aiden a tale about twin eagles that joined wings in flight to blind storms. Darius sharpened spearheads, glancing up each time lightning flicked beyond cave mouth. Isara stitched a tear in Lyana's cloak. When thunder rolled its deepest note, Lucian reached for Lyana's hand. She let him thread their fingers. Liora laid her head against Lyrian's shoulder. He pressed a kiss into her damp hair. No one teased, no one looked away. The intimacy belonged to them all, a warmth that sheltered every watcher. As dusk settled, the storm slackened. Clouds parted, revealing a vault of stars as if the world wished to apologize for earlier rage. The company ventured from hiding, drink flasks in hand, to breathe the petrichor-washed night. The clearing where they stood bore no name on any map, a gentle swale tucked between ridges. Yet moon shone bright, and as the twins stepped onto wet grass, moonflowers hidden in long blades opened under the new starlight, smaller cousins to that earlier meadow. White petals reflected constellations back at the sky. Lucian pulled a thin wool blanket from his saddle and laid it near a cluster of blooms still damp but freshly opened. He invited Lyana with a gesture. She settled beside him, both facing wide starfield. Silence lasted many heartbeats. Wind murmured. Somewhere an owl called, low and steady. Lucian spoke softly. I keep thinking of the stones earlier. The runes said love is what prophecy fears. Because love writes its own story, she answered. He turned, studying her profile lit by moonlight. Will you help me write ours? Her breath caught. I already am. She looked at him fully. The kiss that followed held less surprise and more certainty, like a story already woven through threads of destiny. Moisture from their hair and cloaks cooled lips, but heat rose beneath skin. Nearby under budding rowan boughs, Lyora and Lyrian sat on fallen log, knees touching lightly. Lyora traced the silver-threaded chain at her neck. Lyrian's gaze followed her fingers, tenderness shining. Storm taught me, he whispered, that fear walks beside courage. I would be lost if I didn't feel both. She leaned in, laying left hand over his chest. Your courage beats here. Fear is only a reminder to listen closer. He covered her hand with his. I love the way you see what I hide. I love that you let me look, she replied, voice trembling like a harp string plucked. Farther off, Aiden stood with Kaelin, looking up. The stars are cracks where stories spill through, the child said matter-of-factly. Kaelin squeezed his shoulder. Let the good ones fall on us tonight. When torches burned lower, Thalos and the shaman approached the twins. They pointed to a smooth boulder near Katilan campfire, where fresh runes shimmered into view. Twin spirals, meeting in a heart. Beneath glowed a single phrase. Thalos translated aloud. Love is what prophecies fear, and also what they serve. He bowed to the four heirs. Charge and shield, both in your hands. Guard them well. The night deepened. Bats flitted across silver moon. Dew gathered on petals. Lucian offered Liana his cloak when air cooled. She refused, instead scooting closer, using him as warmth. Liora fell asleep leaning against Lyrian. He tucked blanket around her shoulders, gazing at the fire's last embers. When everyone slept, distant ridgelights appeared for a breath, barrack scouts perhaps, and disappeared again. Darius, on watch, kept hand on spear, but did not rouse camp, knowing nothing would breach the circle of runes and love this night. Dreams followed paths laid by hearts. This time no flame or storm or shadow threatened. Images were gentle. Liana dreamed of weaving lavender ribbons into a single braid with Lucian's help. Lucian dreamed of building a cottage by moonlit lake, where lilies resembled moonflowers. Lyora dreamed of Lyrian teaching owlets how to ride wind. Lyrian dreamed of Lyora releasing petals into river, each petal turning to tiny star. They woke calm yet determined. By dawn the storm smells lingered, but skies cleared pale blue. The camp dismantled quickly. Lucian secured blanket and cloak behind saddle while Liana filled their flasks. Lyora handed Lyrian the rune-etched carving from last night, a reminder of the chain that bound his courage. He slipped it into pouch close to heart. Kaelin gathered everyone at trailhead. Ridge pass awaits, keep formation, eyes sharp. He offered what smile he could. Darius gripped his shoulder. Nothing stronger than hearts behind us, he said. Aiden climbed onto saddle behind Ella, waving shy goodbye to Rowan Tree. The tree's leaves rustled softly, as if answering. As they rode out, petals marked their path like milky footprints disappearing beneath rising sun. Varric's scouts might see them, but they would see also the unity that bloomed among the heirs. In every heartbeat that morning, the twins felt new strength. Their love walked with them like a living guardian, overshadowing fear, burning quiet and steady as dawn rose higher. The journey resumed beneath clear sky, the air crisp after the night storm, but the road quickly angled upward into steeper country. Granite walls rose on either side, funneling the company along a narrow defile, where birch roots clawed through cracks and frost turned springs into slick ribbons across stone. Hooves echoed in hollow cadence, and every clang of a loose horseshoe or creak of leather saddle rang louder than it should, as though the pass amplified sound in warning. Despite that austere setting, hearts carried warmth seized beneath starlit moonflowers, a hush of tender promise that moved with the travelers like invisible standard. Mid-morning found Kaelin scouting a hairpin turn where the defile tightened. He spotted a natural stone arch bridging the gorge ahead, its underside draped by long moss that swayed like curtains. On the far side, wind had tumbled scree into the path, He signaled halt. Darius dismounted with 2 warriors to clear debris. Izara joined, inspecting marked stones for sabotage. One cracked boulder bore faint spiral scratches, but so weather-worn they might have been etched by claws of ancient mountain goats. They pried it loose and tumbled it into gorge below, where it splashed in unseen stream, a satisfying echo of dismissal. While the path was tended, the twins rested in a pocket of sun that filtered through archway gaps. Lyana perched on a boulder, swinging feet. Lucian stood nearby, chiseling moss from a narrow ledge to create a safer foothold. She watched subtle movement of his shoulders under cloak, memorizing lines of sinew and the way morning light burnished the dark of his hair. He paused, caught her gaze, and offered rueful grin. "Should I worry about Moss being jealous of your attention?" he teased. "Moss never looks this handsome while breaking rock," she returned. He feigned shock. "All these years of training for glory, I discover my greatest talent is landscaping." She hopped down, closing the distance. "Landscape needs strong roots, you dig steady." Fingers brushed his wrist. Electricity leapt at contact. He covered her hand with his free one, turning it so her bracelet caught sunflare. "I used to imagine battle glory," he admitted quietly. "Last night I imagined mornings like this. Simpler victories." She answered by lifting on tiptoe to kiss corner of his mouth, a fleeting brush more promise than indulgence. Across the clearing, Thalos pretended to adjust saddle straps for an unoccupied mule, but relieved brightness filled his eyes. Nearby, Liora knelt at streamlet trickling from cliff-filling canteen. Lyrian crouched beside her, cupping water to wash dust from his face. Droplets scattering from his hair glimmered rainbow in morning sun. Liora laughed, dabbing away a bead that lingered on his cheek. He looked up, expression gentle. "Every drop wants to stay with you," he said. "Then let us not waste what it offers." She leaned closer, pressing lips softly where droplet clung. It tasted of chill mountain and warming heart. His cheeks flushed, breath hitching. He traced a moonflower petal he'd hidden in his journal, now tucked behind her ear as token of her gentle daring. Kalen's whistle drew them back to trail. Riders filed through archway single file. Lucian guided Whisper by reins, while Liana steadied a nervous pack mule behind. Once past, the trail broadened into high meadow, where ragged blue gentian dotted grass in defiance of altitude. The company paused only long enough to breathe thin air and admire distant view. To the north, peaks clad in persistent ice. To the south, slopes descending into unknown valleys. Far beyond, veiled in midday haze, a jagged silhouette rose, the first true glimpse of abyssal crag since leaving first light. Even from that distance, its silhouette evoked something watching, neither ally nor foe, but sentinel awaiting pledge. The sight drew silence across the column. Aiden's eyes widened. He whispered to Kalen, "The mountain looks lonely." Kalen squeezed the boy's shoulder. "Maybe it waits for stories." They pressed on. Cloud shadows crawled across grasses. Strong wind sweeping from west carrying smell of snow, though summer still ruled valleys below. Guards on flanks spotted fleeting shapes at ridge lines, silhouettes ducking away before arrows could be knocked. Darius kept pace easy, conserving strength, but double-checked every corner where ambush might sprout. No attack came. Tension remained. Mid-afternoon, the road dipped into wooded saddle thick with old spruce and rowan. Here birdsong returned, though softer than lowland chorus. The group made brief halt to water horses at tarn ringed by lily pads. Liora wandered to water's edge, scattering crumbs from travel biscuit. Tiny fish darted up, nipping at morsels. Lyrian joined, offering crumb from his pocket shaped accidentally like heart. Liora laughed, tossed it into water. Fish surfaced in swirl of silver scales before filching treat. "That is us," she said, "and 2 fish?" He smiled. "1 crumb shared," she clarified. "We feed each other's courage." He considered. "Then I will always carry extra crumbs." He brushed her fingers with back of his hand. A secret vow. Close by, Lyana sat with Lucian on fallen log. She cleaned blade of travel grime while he mended strap on his bracer. Conversation drifted to childhood memories. Lyana recounting how she and Liora once snuck into kitchen storeroom and replaced honey with salt as jest on mentor Kieran. Lucian shared failing first archery test because he'd spent night before carving his bow with designs rather than sleeping. Their laughter merged, echoing across water. For an instant, the world felt void of threat. When journey resumed, clouds that earlier promised snow now thickened behind them, herding afternoon light into muted gray. Darius rode up to Kalen. Ridge to our west funneling wind. Could trap storm by evening. Kalen nodded, told messengers to scout for sheltered glades. They found one as twilight approached. A valley pocket beneath towering basalt cliffs, floor carpeted in heather and low juniper. Spring fed a clear pool at center, and a natural overhang formed shelter from wind. Moonflowers did not grow here, too shaded. But night-blooming heather buds scented air with honey and cedar when dusk cooled. Kalen ordered camp made, tents aligned along cliff and horseshoe. Fires were small, banked with stones. Lyana volunteered first watch with Lucian. They walked perimeter together, speaking in low tones about the road ahead. She confided worry for her mother alone inside fortress walls. He admitted fear that Varric's shadow might grow bolder once they neared the crag. "We fear because we care," he said, stopping at cliff edge where moss glowed faint in starlight. "Fear reminds love to stand taller." She brushed hair from her face, tendrils tickled by night breeze. "Then let fear watch us and learn courage." She intertwined her fingers with his, palm to palm, warmth radiating. Camp settled. Liora brewed juniper tea inside cooking circle. Lyrian joined, adding dried rose petals she had pressed between journal pages. Together they stirred pot, shoulders touching. Steam rose fragrant. They poured cups for Kalen and Aiden, who thanked them with sleepy gratitude. Darius took final mug to Isara by sentry stone, pressing his lips to her temple in appreciation. Night matured into deep velvet. Stars wheeled overhead, more vivid in thin mountain air than any lowland sky. After second watch started, Kalen gave permission for those off-duty to rest or wander within ward circle. Lucian guided Lyana outward to a flat ledge above camp. They laid blanket against stone warmed earlier by sun. No words needed. Both lay back, gazing up. Constellations glittered fierce white, so bright that Milky Way looked like frozen river. Lyana traced one star cluster. "Elders call that the guardian wolf," she said. "It stands sentinel until moon returns." Lucian pointed to star near its muzzle. "And there, the wanderer. My father used to tell us it finds path by following guardian's howl." He laughed softly. "When I was young, I thought stars wrote stories, not future, but memories sparkling." "And now?" "Now I think they do both," he answered. He turned on side, head supported by hand. "Tell me something the stars should remember about tonight." She thought, breath fogging. Two hearts found home in same sky. She faced him, noses close. "Your turn." He stroked her cheek. Two hearts promised to keep sky safe, even when clouds gather. Then he kissed her, slow and thorough, until stars blurred. When they parted, she rested head on his chest, listening to heartbeat heavy with devotion. They stayed thus until chill crept through cloak seams. Carefully, he gathered her hand, tracing bracelet wolves. "Run with me," he whispered. She smiled sleepy yes. Below, Liora and Lyrian sat before waning fire. She hummed low lullaby. Flames flickered, casting runes onto cliff face. He watched entranced. Her voice drifted to hush. She laid head on his lap, eyes closing. He softly recited verses learned from shaman. Love carries light through shadow, water through drought, and names through silence. She murmured content acknowledgement, drifting into gentle dreams. He stayed awake, stroking her hair, guarding peace. Clouds swallowed eastern stars, wind rising. First drops splattered clifftop. Kaelin rotated patrols. Darius convinced Lyana and Lucian to return to tent before heavier rain. They obeyed, sharing private grin. Inside canvas they laid cloaks for bedding, falling asleep pressed back to back, comfort in closeness, yet respectful space. Storm broke near midnight, drumming on cliffs. Rain sluiced down, but overhang shielded tents. Thunder boomed, deep vibration shuddering stone. Lucian woke at first crash. Lyana stirred. In near dark she reached for his hand, found it, squeezed. His answer came in squeeze back. They drifted again, trusting each other to weather storm. In dreamtime the echo visited lightly, more curious than testing. Lyana saw Lucian forging metal shaped like intertwined wolves. Lucian dreamed of her planting moonflower seeds in cracked courtyard of first light, each bloom rebuilding stone seam. Liora dreamed of dancing under rain with Lyrian, laughing as droplets became glowing runes lifting on wind. Lyrian dreamed of reading Liora a tale while thunder cracked overhead, yet words never lost. Dawn arrived washed and new. Clouds parted, leaving air sparkling. Company rose early, stamping chill from feet. Kaelin and Darius walked perimeter. No sign of intrusion. Tracks indicated scouts had approached but retreated. Perhaps they witnessed Storm's fury and believed it the twin bonds' work. Breakfast was simple. Porridge sweetened with dried berries. Liora served Lyrian first. Lucian insisted Lyana take his ration of berries. She countered by slipping them into his bowl. Smiles traded across steam. Thalos addressed group. We enter high pass midday. Trails narrow. Spirits strong. Shaman presented small pouches of sage ash for each rider, to scatter in wind if fear pressed heavy. Tents packed, horses saddled. Before mounting, Lucian took Lyana's hands. From pocket he produced tiny carved feather of birch, sign of journey. Carry wind when wings tire, he said. She kissed his cheek and tied feather to braid above blade wrap. Lyrian placed pressed moonflower petal between pages of Liora's journal. So all stories remember this clearing, he told her. She slid book into satchel, voice soft. Tonight they will write of new victories. Aiden mounted behind Ella, waving to sentry rowan tree, now glimmering raindrops like jewels. Tree seemed to nod. The column moved out, hooves squelching wet turf. As they reached ridge crest, dawn's full glow ignited abyssal crag ahead. Clouds wreathed its base, but summit blazed like forge. Pendants on each twin warmed steady as though acknowledging destination. Lucian rode beside Lyana. She looked toward mountain, nerves tingling. He followed her gaze. Ready? He asked. Ready to write story the stars will remember, she answered. Their hands brushed on reins. Pulses answered. Liora and Lyrian brought up second pair. He pointed to narrow shining river and valley below. She saw its curve mimic twin spirals. He said quietly, The world draws our mark already. She smiled. Then let us match its faith. Behind them Kaelin studied sky. Storm clouds distanced, leaving path clear though winds scented snow. He murmured to himself that love might indeed bend weather. Aiden, overhearing, tapped his arm. Echo blushes when love speaks, the boy declared. Kaelin ruffled hair again. Then may it keep blushing, he replied. Darius and Isara rode sentinel flank, scanning ridges. Varric's shadows no longer appeared. Perhaps they too sensed tide shift in hearts. From Vantage the company could not see. Small petals from night-blooming heather still drifted on breezes, scattering behind as trail of gentle light, marking where love had slept and grown. Somewhere along twisting ridges, old prophecy whispered to itself, adjusting unseen lines to account for forces more resilient than fear. And so the heirs rode onward. Ahead waited ice-laden passes, echoing chasms, and the hollow heart of abyssal crag. But around them rode courage woven with tenderness, laughter under thunder, kisses beneath stars, gifts exchanged with trembling joy. Each heartbeat declared, Love is shield and fire, both, the prophecy's greatest fear and truest hope.